So if you have no ovulation, you don't have a real period. And then you have more irregular cycles. And because of that, if you're planning to conceive, you cannot predict conception. And to add to that, because of low carb, serotonin production also reduces, so PMS flares up. And then you could obviously have more inflammation that's happening because all of your hormones are now out of whack. So a lot of people usually do low carb because, they want to get their period back. But this is where it actually backfires really badly. So now most people think that doing low carb will mean direct fat loss. But if you're not careful and if your carbs are way too low and you're also doing it for an extended period of time, you could lose one of the most expensive tissues in your body, which is muscle. So what happens is that in an attempt to lose fat, you cut calories. A lot of your calories come from carbs because, like I said, social media influence, right? And once you cut your calories way too low, your body doesn't have enough energy needed for daily activities. So it starts tapping into the stored energy that it does have, which is in the form of muscle. And this is what we call as catabolism. Now, this matters because muscle is your metabolic engine. It's what keeps your metabolism high. It's what keeps your BMR high, your NEAT high, your thermic effect of food high. So muscle also improves your insulin sensitivity, as we know. So in the PCOS universe, you need to build muscle not just for vanity, but to help your body become more insulin sensitive, almost to defend yourself against the selective insulin resistance, which has been biologically determined for you already. Especially if you're somebody who immediately regains the fat after hopping off from a low carb diet, that's a classic indicator that you might be carrying very less muscle mass. Now, there is a saying that dieting means going to bed hungry. And it's kind of okay to feel hungry and, to feel uncomfortable, especially when you're trying to lose fat, and it's all part of the process. So a lot of women are conditioned to just push through the pain, right? We give ourselves this tough love approach and we're like, nope, I am going to let my stomach growl, even though I have an important meeting tomorrow morning, even though it's 2 a.m. at night and I'm not getting sleep. But because I want to lose these 5 pounds of fat, I'm going to push through the pain and let my hunger roar. But this is where things go a little bit off. In PCOS, especially in the luteal phase of PCOS, where your progesterone levels are higher than normal, the ghrelin hormone essentially is at its peak. And it takes a long time for ghrelin to come back. So as you know, ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Now, stack low carb on top of that. What happens is that your satiety becomes so low, which means hunger becomes primal. And when hunger is primal, you cannot resist binging. And this is when a lot of women go on to these binge fests where they consume, endless sort of portions of food, and they wipe out the entire calorie deficit that they created for the week. And then that begins a series of guilt trip where you are now completely lost because you're like, oh shoot, I don't know why I did this. And you start blaming yourself and your willpower. But in actuality, hunger is an indicator of nutrient deficiency, where your body is like, look, I don't have enough fuel to just do regular things. Like, I don't have enough fuel to even produce serotonin so that you can get good sleep at night. So it keeps you awake. Hunger is not a bad signal. It's a sign that your body is not receiving the right kind of fuel. Another big disadvantage of the low-carb diet is the amount of gut issues that it creates, especially in the universe of PCOS, because you already have gut dysbiosis, where the balance of your good and bad gut bacteria is already off due to hormonal imbalance in particular. And what happens is that when you go on a low-carb diet, you tend to cut out a lot of the fruits, vegetables, sort of fibrous grains, and you focus more into like fats and meat or, fats and protein. So typically your gut does not get enough of the prebiotic and the probiotic to feed the good gut bacteria. And so because of that, you notice a lot of constipation, bloating, gut motility issues. A lot of your nutrient absorption also goes away. Because remember, it's actually these good gut bacteria that help your stomach break down the food into absorbable things which are then released into your bloodstream. Going on a low carb diet is actually detrimental for your gut health. And it actually makes your progress feel invisible because you are always puffy, you're always inflamed, you're always bloated, and you're kind of blaming something, but you need to know that it's actually your plan. That including more fiber in your diet is actually very beneficial for your particular biology. And finally, I want to talk about how low carb diet in particular takes away from the very flexibility of the fitness lifestyle. Now, you might have heard a lot of people say that, look, when I'm dieting, I will not meet you for lunch. I will not go out. There are no vacations. There is no travel. But what if life happens and you need to travel? So picture this. You've been doing a low carb diet for, say, 3 weeks straight. Every macro counted, you lost a bunch of weight already. You're feeling fantastic, right? And then suddenly your boss tells you that you need to travel somewhere for work. Or you suddenly hit your period, right? It's possible after 3 weeks. Now, suddenly what happens is you can't meal prep. You are running on fumes because you've been eating low carb, so your body doesn't really have any reserve energy to help you during these push periods at work. You're forced to take a break from your diet and you start eating everything normally again. And suddenly the weight just shoots back up. And this triggers panic inside you. And now you're all confused and you're afraid and you feel like you're a failure. And this is what actually wears a lot of women out. They get frustrated because they are just losing and gaining the same 5 pounds over and over again. And while their hormones are just slowly shifting away from balance. So here's what really happened is that the low carb diet removed the very flexibility. It removed the buffer we need, especially when life gets messy. You need your body to support you by giving you that energy during that push time. So if low carb is not the approach to help you with PCOS symptoms or, help you manage PCOS, then what works? What kind of diet actually works? And I'm going to dive into just that right now. The Mediterranean diet is one of the best diets out there, especially if you have hormonal imbalances like PCOS. Let me explain. Now, the Mediterranean diet is not just a buzzword. It actually originated around the regions of the Mediterranean Sea, particularly in Greece. And it's a diet that is known for its anti-inflammatory properties, mainly. So people in this region actually have reported lower rates of obesity, heart disease, lower hormonal imbalance in women in particular, specifically because of this diet. So one gold standard 2015 study actually revealed that women with PCOS who tend to follow the Mediterranean diet, they actually reported the least amount of symptoms and flare-ups and actually were able to control their PCOS from worsening into prediabetes or diabetes. This diet is also known for its high adherence, which means that people who follow the Mediterranean diet are able to stick to it longer term. And why? And this is where things get really interesting, because you already know why you can't stick to a low carb diet, like the fatigue, the digestive issues, just the hunger is crazy in a low carb diet, which is the exact opposite in Mediterranean. So I have a list of ingredients which I'm going to now walk you through, which you can actually eat in this diet. So you can have fruits like, berries, apples, oranges. You could have vegetables, like especially the non-starchy ones like spinach, eggplant, tomatoes, cucumbers, healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds, lean proteins like fish, chicken, eggs, particularly omega-3 rich, fatty acid fish like salmon. You can have whole grains like oats, barley, wheat, and obviously a lot of spices like, garlic, rosemary, chives, oregano. So this is not a restrictive diet. It's actually a pleasurable diet. It's a whole food diet. It kind of helps you lean into, single ingredient foods. The recipes in the Mediterranean diet are super tasty. They are sustainable, so you can stick to them for a long time. And the benefits on your body, especially on your hormones, are so good that this is touted as one of the best diets for women with PCOS. And guess what? This is very easy to translate into the Indian diet in particular. A lot of women feel, especially South Asian women feel, that they need to step away from their Indian roots and adopt a complete Western culture diet if they want to see any kind of fat loss. And I would say that there's a bit of nuance missing there, because the Indian plate of spices, whole foods, grains, meat, vegetables is actually very close to the Mediterranean food. It's just that we need to work with our portions a bit better. So leaning more into, following more of the my plate approach, where you have half the plate filled with vegetables, a nice quarter for protein, where you're using tofu to make your tofu curry, paneer curry, or you're making some like a chicken dish, of course, chicken curry. We all know that chicken tikka masala is great. And then you have your grain source or your carb source, where you could use like sweet potatoes, you could use beetroot, you could use, quinoa, millets. If you want to have some roti, you can make like a multi-flour roti, like a ragi roti or something similar. So tweaking your Indian plate, choosing all of your Indian flavors, because they have a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. And as I'm going to get into that. So for example, your dals and lentils, they are packed with fiber. They have a lot of micronutrients like, like zinc and magnesium in particular. You have your millets, such as, rajgira and your chana flour, which are smart carbs, and they actually offer like a slow glucose release. And they keep your insulin steady. Very important, because as you know, you have selective insulin resistance, and this is when you need your insulin to stay as low as possible. So what I'm talking about now is the insulin sensitivity boosting foods. And in gut boosting and anti-inflammatory properties, as you already know, we have turmeric, we have fenugreek, we have cumin, ginger, garlic, that these are all staples in all of our Indian curries. And you also have high satiety options, like we do your egg burji, we do your paneer, you make a besan chila stuffed with paneer. It's an amazing high protein, anti-inflammatory, super insulin balanced meal. So these meals are not just comforting, they are staples which you can eat until you're like 70, right? You're never going to feel like you're on a diet, because this is a regular part of your lifestyle. And that's what I want you to think about as you, begin planning your own journey for PCOS management, is what can I eat that is also tasty, that is comforting, that is giving me this joy that I can keep doing it forever, while internally my body is also happy. My hormones are happy, my thyroid is thriving, my insulin is balanced, and everything is great. And this is where I feel like a cross between Mediterranean and Indian diet is just fantastic. So you're giving your body the tools to reduce inflammation, to heal your gut, boost higher gut health, to support ovulation, and obviously reduce your cravings and make you feel a lot more in control of your hunger. I want to give you a few pointers as a health coach. And so let's just take a few steps back. Let's zoom out a little. Weight loss should not be the only goal for you, especially if you are battling or you have been battling PCOS symptoms for a long time. Your goal should be hormone healing, ensuring that your hormones try to get as balanced as they possibly can. And the reason why a lot of women, even after losing weight, they feel bloated, they feel inflamed, they feel moody, is because their only focus was on the scale. Like, I want to lose X kilos. I don't care how it happens. I need to get there. And that one-dimensional thinking is actually not going to make you thrive inside, because in order for you to heal your hormones, you need to look at the big picture. You need to have the patience of actually eating foods that might initially feel like, is this even working for me? Because I'm not seeing this initial 2-kilo drop like my low carb diet friend did. So instead of looking at the number on the scale, I want you to think about your symptoms. Think about, is my acne reducing? Is my hair thinning, getting better? Do you have better mood and deeper sleep? Are you able to control your hunger, right? Even though you've not eaten for a long time, because you're no longer sort of depriving your body. Do I feel like I'm in my 20s even though I'm in my 40s?